Can a child's toy create a global community? Join me in conversation with author, artist, musician, creative coach, and yo-yo aficionado, Jodi Rose Crump. She shares the ups and downs of yo-yoing and how this toy on a string strengthened her relationship with her father and brought people from around the world together. We start with your bio. It's absolutely fascinating read. You're an author of both words and music. You're a violinist. You're a circus performer. You're a mother. You're a pet parent. You're a traveler. So you've got this whole thing. And then one of your books has you as a self-proclaimed witch. Which I think is absolutely fascinating, that you are a wonderful witch living in Wichita, Kansas.
I like to say that, witch from Wichita.
Yeah. So how did this beautiful, wonderful witch come to be in Wichita if that's not where you started your journey?
So I mostly grew up in Virginia, it used to be half an hour from DC, but now it's like at the end of the metro, the Silver Line. It's a new line. I guess about 5 years ago now, I initiated a divorce from the man I was married to, who's also the father of my kids. And about 2 years ago, I met a wonderful man here in Kansas. And I just, we talked a lot on the phone because he was here and I was there. But we became really good friends over the course of a long time. And then I finally got to meet him, and then we got to know each other some more. And then he kept saying, just move here, move here, move here. So, and then my rent went up in Virginia. I just could not afford to stay. So I decided to come out here to Kansas. It's a big adjustment.
What is your background in music? How did that come into your life?
And in kindergarten, I remember seeing Sesame Street on TV, and there was a little kid, like a boy playing, not like a boy, he was a boy. There was a boy playing violin on Sesame Street. I went, I love the sound of that. And I just said, I want to do that. Also, my mom, who's also Canadian, my mom took me to jazz clubs when I was a little kid, and I fell in love with the upright bass. Just the sound of strings sounds really good to me. And so when I got into 4th grade, that's when you could learn a stringed instrument in elementary school. So I started playing violin then. So I've been playing quite a while on violin.
Your violin has taken you on the road. Where have you traveled with your violin?
I tried to count recently. I've played violin in all but 3 Canadian provinces now, and I have played in somewhere between 30 and 40 of the United States also.
Yeah, so you had a goal, you wrote about a goal of wanting to play in all 50 states and all 10 provinces, or whatever number we happen to have at this moment in time, because they keep changing it.
I remember when there were 7. I don't know how that happened. Maybe I was just wrong.
Yeah, we added a few, we took a few away. It's kind of like the planets, Pluto was a planet, then it was a moon, then it became a planet again. So I guess Canada's in really good celestial company in that regard. Your journey of music, you've traveled with your violin. You've got, violin on the road, or music on the go is what you call it. What does that mean to you? Like, what does music do for you?
Oh, what does music do for me? Okay, so I have ADHD, and my brain is constantly going, brr, brr, like bananas and dogs, and oh, that fan is still on, and I can hear that thing, and oh my gosh, I mean, just like it's constant, and nothing relates to anything else, right? That's my brain. But when I have live music, either I'm playing it or somebody else is, it gets into my brain and it just calms me down. So it's like, all I hear then is the music, and like whatever, if I'm practicing songs, like for a concert or something, then the last song I play while I'm practicing, that will stay in my head for at least a day, and it just calms me down. It's really nice. So I also, my family is really musical. So every one of us plays piano, And then each of us also plays another instrument. So that's nice too. It's a way to connect to family also.
That must make for a wonderful family jamboree when you get together and you're complementing each other, not just from an energetic perspective, but an auditory perspective.
Yeah, last week I was in Illinois with my brother, and I said, hey, do you want to get your guitar out? Because we were on the phone and he started plucking some stuff on guitar. And I was like, oh yeah, that's right, he plays guitar. And I think he also plays clarinet. I'm not sure. He plays at least one other instrument too. It might be clarinet. I can't keep everybody straight. And I said, hey, when I get there, do you want to get your guitar out and I'll have my violin? We can play some songs together. He said, yeah, sure, that'd be great. So then we did, and that was really fun. And it was more about hanging out with my brother playing music than it was about really recording anything of amazing talent.
You're delving into the arts started also on the walls in your family home. You mentioned in one of your blog postings that you use the walls in the house as a canvas, and now you are creating both canvases for display in art galleries as well as cartoons. So what was the inspiration to go from the family walls that your father never erased to becoming I don't know whether you call it like, it's not a published author, but or a published artist. Is it like a displayed artist or a professional artist? Like, what's your designation in that regard?
I just say artist. I don't know. I have painted murals and been paid for them. And I have also sold some of my paintings. So I have been paid. I guess I am a professional, but I just am an artist. Self-taught.
The walls at home were probably crayons, I would imagine, because I know that's what I did to my mother's walls. And she wasn't as forgiving as it sounds like your father might have been.
Yeah, my dad loved my creativity. When I was little, he didn't want to buy me coloring books. He said he wanted me to learn how to draw on my own. So he would give me paper and crayons or a pencil or something, and I would just draw. And yeah, just throughout the years, he always wanted me to do art. And he was also a published author. And one of his books is called It's Yo-Yo Time, like the toy, the yo-yo. I brought a yo-yo too. So he wanted me to illustrate some of the tricks for the yo-yoing. So I illustrated, I guess, actually 2 of his books with yo-yo tricks. It's a lot of drawing of hands.
So you became very digitally proficient.
Oh, with my digits. Yes, my finger digits. Yeah. Really nice word. Yes. Yeah, and then after I graduated college, I was super poor. I mean, I was so poor. I lived on Tangs and Tang, you know, that orange drink, and saltine crackers. So I was living on that. I was so poor, and I just thought I need a hobby. So I went to the store because I was not an art major in college. But I went to the store and I bought a cheap pad of paper and a set of watercolors, you know, like for kids or whatever. It's like $3 for all of it. And I just started painting and I went, oh yeah, I can do art. I had forgotten, like it wasn't really part of me for a long time. And then as I got into the workforce, I got a little more money. So I started painting on canvas with acrylics. And I just really love it. It's really nice. I enjoy lots of bright, happy colors.
So where did the cartoons come into play between your colors and your yo-yo expositions in your father's books? What kind of cartoons did you bring forward in your life?
So I did draw cartoons just for my dad for fun. And then I also did them in school newspapers in middle school and high school. Yeah. And then also when I did the illustrating for his books, I have a cartoon style for illustrating, so that's it. Oh, right. And then also when I was a substitute school teacher, I substitute taught from preschool all the way up through high school, the end of high school. And sometimes to motivate kids, you need something fun. Like, hey, if you guys are good today, I'll show you yo-yo tricks at the end of the day. Or if you guys are good and and you wanted, I can do a caricature of you, you know, at the end of the class period. And kids would line up. They're like, yeah, I want a caricature. So that was fun. So those are cartoons I did.
What a great motivating tool of positive reinforcement, in the sense of you're giving them something they can't buy anywhere else. Like, it's not like you can go to
Right.
the store and buy a caricature of yourself.
That's
And
true.
then, you know, and then the other side, you're also teaching them yo-yo skills. You know, so I mean,
True.
you've got these, you know, dualities coming forward of appealing to both sides of their being able to have a skill and a something that's personalized to them. You know, I
That's true.
would definitely, you know, put my hand up and say, what do you need me to do in class to get that?
Cool. Just listen to me and do what you're supposed to, and don't be too loud, basically.
So when did your father write his book about yo-yos?
Well, I've got one of them right here. So this one is Yo-Yo Tips and 45 Tips and Tricks by Stuart Crump Jr. This one, when did he write these? Oh, this one says copyright 1999. It was probably the late well, it probably wasn't the late 80s. It was probably during the 90s when he wrote several of them, yo-yo books. So I have another one. I should have brought that one over here too, but I didn't. That one has my cartoons in it. I forgot all about it.
Well, if you want to go grab it, please do. Like, if it's handy and nearby, please go grab it.
I think so. Just a minute. Yeah, I have the first edition. It doesn't say first edition, but it's called It's Yo-Yo Time, and that's a caricature a friend of mine drew of my dad. Yeah, so, but it's got more than 350 new yo-yo tricks by Stuart F. Crump Jr., editor, illustrated by Jodi Crump. Nice. And then also one of my brothers and another guy named Mo.
Okay, so I'm going to invite you to crack the book open. And is there anything in there that jumps out that you created? Any of your cartoon, okay. Is there any of your handiwork in the book that you can show us?
Okay, so here's one of my brothers. I drew a picture of my brother with his yo-yo shirt.
Nice.
So this was back I was in college, actually, when I did this. That's my dad. Cat's Eye Watches the Baby. What's a trick? Wow. And there's one called Cat's Eyes. That's View from the Yo-Yoers. Those aren't great hands. Oh, here's one of me doing Over the Falls. I think that's Over the Falls. Oh my gosh. And then also my dad. I'm having trouble seeing what yeah.
Wonderful. Okay, so I'm going to use the juggling character to shift into. Oh, is that okay? There's your handiwork.
Yeah, lots of hands. Yeah, I got better at drawing hands the more I did, you know.
Can you show us the other page again? Yeah, and then go to the other side. Yeah. The only trick that I was ever able to perfect was walk the dog.
Oh, good. That's a tricky one. That's a tricky trick. Good job.
It was the only, and part of it was I really wanted a dog when I was a kid. So I figured if I had my yo-yo, walking the dog, at least I was like doing something that had the name of a dog attached to it. And I was walking.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Good job.
Thank you. So in your book, you've got one of the characters is juggling. You worked with or studied under the Ringling Brothers and Cirque du Soleil. So how did that come into fruition for you in your life?
Okay, so my dad used to do yo-yo shows. He wanted kids to yo-yo. So he did family audiences. He'd perform at schools and library programs and toy stores and birthday parties and bar mitzvahs. And pretty soon he got invited to yo-yo for the White House. And then he did the Easter egg roll at the White House. And then he also did a 4th of July thing for the White House. I also did want to say that I also performed at the White House with my dad. When I was around, he would say, hey, you want to come do this yo-yo show with me? And then he would pay me because he would get paid. So I'd get paid too. And later on, it turned into the two of us doing shows together. And then when I was about 30, I met a guy who I then married, who was also a yo-yoer. And we used to say we got our strings tangled and then we tied the knot. So,
That's awesome.
yeah, so then it became him and me doing shows like blue and gold banquets or libraries or festivals and fairs. And then, yeah, around age 30, he and I got married. Well, I was about 30. We got married. And then he started performing at the Maryland Renaissance Festival as the Wacky Yo-Yo guy. I think that was, what is his stage name? The Wacky Yo-Yo Man. And then I started performing too, using bubbles. That became my new thing, doing bubbles instead of yo-yos. And
Okay.
just,
What kind of bubbles? Like the bubbles that you like dip the stick into
Yeah, yeah.
and blow into it?
yeah. Yeah,
Okay.
so I was just entertaining little kids. I made up a little game called Leaves, and I had fairy wings, really pretty fairy wings. And I was just Sparkles the fairy. Although later I became Sudsy the fairy because, you know, bubbles.
Yeah.
So, yeah, so after a while, we became friends with some of the other entertainers there at the Renaissance Festival, like Michael Rossman, who's a tightrope walker, and Johnny Fox, who was a sword swallower. And Michael Rossman started up this thing called Motion Fest. And it was an annual thing for kinetic performers to go to, people who perform, like, not with necessarily a musical instrument or whatever, but they're not necessarily dancers or whatever. It's just people who do things kinetically, like juggle or yo-yo or clowning. It was a lot of clowning. And then, so a lot of us got together and went to this Motion Fest thing. It was really fun. And that's where Michael Rossman would have Cirque du Soleil clowns and Big Apple Circus clowns and Ringling. And then there's also Pickle Circus from San Francisco, and then just some other performers too. And they would teach classes, and we go take these classes. And I learned so much from these people. It was amazing. So that's how we went to Motion Fest several years. So yeah, I got to take from the greats.
What did learning these different skills from the circus performers and teachers, what did that instill in you?
Wow. There's a way when you're performing, there's one thing to like sit there and be like, and then there's another way to like look at yourself and go, oh my gosh, I touch my glasses all the time, you know, or I wiggle, you know, like every time I'm talking, I'm wiggling or something. It's like you get to see yourself, and other people who are also stage performers give you feedback. And then, yeah, and then you can just go, okay, I need to calm down. Like one of the classes, this woman, I think her whole thing was just to teach us to be still in the moment. One of the things I do, and I know you will see it in this interview, is I tend to go, I talk, and then I kind of giggle at the end. And that's something I have not been able to get rid of, but that's what I do. It's so much better if I could just say what I want to say and then just sit there, you know, but I'm really observant that I do this giggle. It's kind of like my punctuation mark. There's a Cirque du Soleil called Quidam, Quidam, Quidam. And oh, it's just a masterful piece of circus work. And in it, there's amazing clowning work where the two clowns are kind of bickering a little, and then one of them steps aside and just looks out at the audience. And then the other clown goes off and bickers with another clown. And then they decide they need to build a noose. So they've built a noose like to go around somebody's neck. And then, so he's going to put it around somebody's neck, and another person is going, stop, you know, don't do that. So he goes, okay, I'll put it around my neck. And then he puts it around his own neck, and the other guy's like, stop. So then he looks at the third clown, who's been standing there this whole time, not moving, staring at the audience. And he comes over to this clown, and he sees this clown is looking at the audience, right? And then he goes, oh, he looks at the audience like he's going to put the noose around somebody else's neck in the audience. And then the other guy goes, stop. And just the fact that this one clown was ready to go, you know, and it didn't look like he was preparing for anything. He's just standing there staring at the audience, right? But it's a setup for another joke. And he wasn't wiggling. He wasn't distracting. He just was quietly standing there. And like, I don't know, there's something really emotional about that to me. That's like really beautiful that somebody can be so still and be so part of the story, you know?
How have you been able to bring that type of stillness into your life in other ways when you're not clowning around?
Before I get into that, I actually want to share a different story. I was up on stage one time in Delaware for the Boys and Girls Club of Delaware, and I was performing right by the water. And I didn't know this before the show, but I learned it during the show. Wherever there's water, it's really windy because like cool air meets warm air and then wind happens, and bubbles don't like wind. They're going to go over there. Like you can't do a bubble show because your bubbles are over there. You know, I was like, whoa, there are my bubbles. And I'm standing there figuring this out, that there's no way I can really do the bulk of my bubble show because I need the bubbles to be where I want them to be, right? And I just kind of thought about this clown standing there. And I just stood there and I looked at the audience and I just decided to love the audience, you know, in my heart. And I just stared at them, and I didn't like wiggle. I didn't get angry. I didn't get frustrated. I just stood there and loved my audience. And then I pulled out my bubble wand and I dipped it in my soap. And then I went like this and I just let the bubbles fly over there, you know, like we're talking hundreds of bubbles going out, you know, like hundreds of these bubbles, just like there's a wall of bubbles to my left now, you know. And I don't know, there was just something in that moment where I realized I don't actually have to be entertaining this audience. I can just be still and love my audience, and it's going to be okay, you know?
Or where did you feel it in your body to connect with your audience in a heart space rather than from a entertainment space?
Oh, that's a great question. Yeah, entertainment space kind of feels like it's up here in my brain and then in my arms somewhere. But yeah, at this moment, I felt it probably between like the top of my throat and down to like my gut, you know, where you're just like my whole, instead of the outside of my body, it was inside my core, you know, just stand there and go, wow, this is a great audience. Look at how many people are sitting here watching my show, and all the little kids, you know, nobody's distracted. They're just like, you get to sit there and go, wow, you guys are really cool. You know?
I wanted to jump backwards a little bit to your dad and the yo-yos, because your dad has a fascinating story with yo-yos, and I'd love you to share how he got into yo-yos in his book, and then the competition that he's been part of.
Okay, so when he was a kid, in elementary school, his family went on vacation, and they were staying in a hotel. I can't remember where the vacation was, but my dad and his oldest younger brother were there as kids, and they stayed in a hotel where there was a yo-yo professional. I'm pretty sure it was Joe Radovan, and he was demonstrating yo-yos, and my dad and his brother spent a whole bunch of hours with this man, like every day, a whole bunch of hours each day, just learning tricks. They learned everything they could from this yo-yo professional during that week. And I guess throughout his life, my dad thought yo-yos were really great. And then, so that would have been in the 1950s, like the early 1950s, I guess. And then in 1987, I'm pretty sure it was 1987, he went to the Consumer Electronics Show in Las Vegas because they had it every year. And this was for his cellular stuff. He was looking at new technology, like what are the new technologies that come out? You know, what are, like cell phone antennas were different, or the new cell phones or pagers, or all just kinds of new technology. And then
so was he involved in creating cell phones? Because one of the things that's in another, what was his attraction to the cell phone?
Oh yeah, that's a whole other story.
Okay.
So as a kid, he watched, or he really liked the cartoon in the newspaper called Dick Tracy.
Yep.
And Dick Tracy is a police officer who had a two-way wrist radio. It looks about like this. And the radio being that he could transmit to his boss, hey boss, this is what I'm doing. And then his boss would reply by radio signal back to Dick, hey, yeah, Dick, I need you to go to Longview Road or whatever. And So Dad was fascinated with the fact that Dick Tracy and his boss could communicate with a device that was on his wrist. And he fell in love with that kind of technology. And then he thought everybody needs these things. So yeah, and it turned into the cell phone. He thought everybody's going to have a cell phone. And at the time they were called cellular radio.
Mhm.
So at first they were cellular radio, then they became cellular telephones. And now of course we call them cell phones. Yeah, so it was his love of Dick Tracy that got him to into cellular telephones. And then so he went to the Consumer Electronics Show, and it was in Las Vegas. And he thought, I'm going to go to the Smothers Brothers stage show, because he had watched the Smothers Brothers Comedy Hour, again, probably in the 50s when he was a kid. And it was such a great show. They do political satire, and they had just funny sketches and some sketches that have more meaning, or they would sing. Some of the songs are really beautiful, and some of the songs are just so funny and hilarious. So my dad went to the show. He's like, let's go see the Smothers Brothers. And then during the show, Tommy Smothers pulled out his yo-yo, and he did his Yo-Yo Man act. So he's doing Walk the Dog and Around the World and Forward Pass. And he did a bunch of different tricks. And my dad's like, oh yeah, I love yo-yos. So then he came home and he bought a red butterfly Duncan yo-yo. And he started to learn this yo-yo thing, like for real this time. He thought, I'm going to do this as an adult. And he realized that playing with the yo-yo took him back to what it was like to be a kid. And so I just released his latest book called How to Travel Through Time. And that's one of the things he writes in the beginning of the book is the yo-yo helps him travel to the past, like when he was this happy little kid. And so that's in that book. It's stories and anecdotes from my dad. And he talks about how we are all always traveling through time and how we can do it, and it's really cool. It's a good book, in my opinion. And yeah, so he started yo-yoing, and then I like to say that a year later he was still doing it. So in self-defense, I picked up a yo-yo and started yo-yoing too. That got me into it. Yeah. So yeah. Oh,
So
yeah.
what are some of your favorite tricks to do with the yo-yo?
Oh, I like picture tricks. So a lot of people, I'm about to put this on my finger. A lot of people put their finger through here, right there, that loop, like this, right? And so that's not actually the right way to do it. I pretend that this is a needle, and this hole right here is the eye of the needle. So I want to thread the needle. So I take this string down here, this string, and I thread it through the needle like that. And then you have a one-size-fits-all slip knot. So now it'll fit your finger. And then let's see. So, and you don't want it on your pointer finger, you want it on your middle finger. And ideally, excuse me, I think this is a new string. Whoops, I put it on backwards. Gotta do it right. Ideally you want it between these two knuckles. So anywhere between the two knuckles is fine. So that's how to do a yo-yo. I'm pretty sure this is a new string. Let's hope it works. The yo-yo. There's.
Oh, beautiful.
Can you see it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm trying to make it prettier for the camera. I don't know how to, like, you go left, it goes right. So then there's the little star. It's a one-handed star. How do I do this?
Okay. So you're making a design with the yo-yo string while the yo-yo's in motion or in a pause state.
Yeah, that's true. It would show you me doing it with the cameras.
Yes, we need to get the crew out to you.
There's a spider web. Ooh, scary. So I like doing picture tricks. These are I yo-yoed years and years ago, back in the 80s and 90s or whatever. So I liked to do tricks that I thought would get girls into yo-yoing. Because so many boys yo-yo. It's a very male-dominated sport. And I figured out I could put glittery nail polish on my yo-yos, and now they were sparkly. or pretty stickers or something. And I tried to attract girls into the field of yo-yoing. That was my big thing.
So would you say that yo-yoing is considered a sport?
Oh yeah, definitely sport. Absolutely.
And what skills does one require to compete in yo-yo competitions?
Oh, so I went to the national yo-yo contest in June, and it has changed. Oh my gosh, the yo-yo competition. Oh wow, it's so changed. When my dad was a kid in the 50s, kids learned, I don't know if it was 10 tricks, 12 tricks, 20 tricks. There was a trick list. It was a certain amount of set tricks countrywide. And kids who did all the tricks and then won the contest. And the way you win is if every kid does every trick, the last thing you do is a loop off, which is where you're throwing loops, loop, 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 like this. And whoever can do the most of them or do it the longest, they win. They win the contest. Then they would win a bicycle. So, I mean, kids really wanted that bicycle, you know. So that was in the 50s. So then when I was doing competitions in the 90s and the 2000s or whatever, there was also a trick list, and it was more like 200 tricks, I think. And so that's the sport division. There are now divisions.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, so I competed in the sport division, which is considered the easiest division. Other divisions in the 2000s were, two-handed. So two-handed yo-yo, and people having a yo-yo in both hands doing tricks. A lot of it is looping, just looping with both hands and down. That's called milk the cow, or out and then, or up like this. I forget what it's called. And then there's one where you can go out and down. That's called riding a horse. It looks like they're riding a horse. Or if you do the loops like this on your left and then on your right, that's called skiing. And I just want to mention Mark Sitton as the one who came up with skiing. And I just think it's a brilliant trick. And the yo-yo community doesn't remember him. And I just really wanted to drop his name there because he was a great kid. I want to show you another trick that Mark Sitton came up with. Is that cool? You've seen the trick, rock the baby.
Yes.
Right? Okay. And then there's rock the little baby. It's little. Okay. And then there's rock the baby the modern way with two cradles. This is called joint custody.
Oh, jeez.
So that's the trick. The joint custody trick is the trick that Mark Sitton came up with. A 16-year-old kid, joint custody.
That's awesome.
So, yeah, I just wanted to share that. And then the final division that I remember back in year like 2001 or something was yo-yoing to music. So they'd put music up and kids would do tricks. Also a duo division with two people doing something together to entertain the audience. My middle brother and I entered the duo competition to perform to a song our dad wrote called It's Yo-Yo Time. And so we get the audience and I always get on stage first and I say, okay, we're going to perform to the song. My dad wrote it. The song is performed by Larry Gross. He did Junk Food Junkie. It was a hit song in the 1970s. And he also did a lot of Disney songs in the 70s and probably the 80s too. And so now like the older audience members are like, I remember Junk Food Junkie. And then the younger audience members, they know Disney. So they're like, okay, this guy might be kind of cool. So then I say, okay, I need you all to sing the song. And the audience is usually like, what the heck? You know, I don't sing. You don't want me to sing. And then I say, okay, here are the words. It's yo-yo time. That's it. Those are the whole words of the song.
Those are the words. Those are the words they have to remember. It's yo-yo time.
Yep. Yep. And then I say, every time I point at you, you're going to say it. You ready? 1, 2, 3. It's yo-yo time. And the audience will do it. And I'm like, good, we're ready. And then I cue up the music and it lists tricks. It says, when I was just a child of 10, I met the most amazing man. He taught me all the things you see. Oh, wait, that's a different verse. Okay, I'll just go and say it. Like how to slurp the spaghetti, how to throw and catch that top, and how to do the planet hop. The breakaway, watch it fly. Loop the loop, it's fun to try. He taught me all the things I know. He taught me how to yo-yo. And then the chorus comes up. I'll sing, it's yo-yo time, and I point at the audience, it's yo-yo
It's
time. And
yo-yo
everybody-
time.
Exactly. It's yo-yo time. It's yo-yo time. Yeah, so my brother and I entered this, and we're doing the tricks as they get called out by the song, and I'm cueing the audience, it's yo-yo time. And we actually won second place, which was pretty cool. So we won, yeah, in the national yo-yo competition a couple weeks ago. My brother and I won second place in the duo competition. We didn't expect that because, like I told you, these kids are doing these crazy things. I mean, I do picture tricks. I look like a beginner compared to these kids. At one point in the competition, some kid saw me buy a yo-yo from one of the vendors, and he said, "Hey, what'd you buy?" I think this was the yo-yo I pulled out and showed him. And the freehand I like because yellow shows up on stage really well. But I just couldn't resist this turquoise color. So I pulled this out. The kid's like, "What'd you buy?" I pulled this out. These are not the same yo-yo. This one is more advanced than this one. And he says, "Oh, you're a beginner then." I was like, whoa, this kid's like 8 years old, you know? I've been yo-yoing and in competitions since before his parents met, you know? Like, and I thought, I guess compared to him, I'm a beginner. Okay, fair enough. And I did buy some other yo-yos that weekend, but it was really humbling.
All about perspective. When you look at your lineage, your father and you kind of created this sport, or were very instrumental in making
yeah.
it what it is. And then you've got these young comers who don't understand the history behind it. And they're calling you a beginner, as in like a novice. And, you know, perhaps your trick skill comparatively might be in, you know, differential portions, but from a historic perspective, they wouldn't be standing there calling you a novice if you and your father hadn't created what you did.
Yeah, so I want to actually share a little more about that so that other yo-yoers watching this won't think I'm like exaggerating. But yeah, my dad, so that's my dad, Professor Yo-Yo. So this side, okay, down here it says yo-yo time, so you can see a theme. I told you his song was It's Yo-Yo Time, right?
Yes.
This book is also It's Yo-Yo Time, and the song was also It's Yo-Yo Time. My dad was very consistent. So he started yo-yoing, like I said, in 1987. He found all the Duncan and Royal yo-yo masters from the 1950s who are still alive. Somehow he found them. He's like, Barney Akers, I'm going to go visit him. And Gus Samara, I'm going to go visit him. And Joe Radovan, and whoever he could find, just these names from the 1950s. And he went and found them, and he interviewed them, and he took their photo. And then he decided to make this newsletter, yo-yo Times newsletter. And so he put these interviews with these yo-yo greats in his newsletter, and the photos. And then he needed people to mail this newsletter to. And somewhere along the way, he thought, you know, we've got a yo-yoer over here in Philadelphia, and another one in Florida, and another one in Texas, and another one. None of these people know each other. They don't hang out. They couldn't have told you anybody's name or where they live. And so my dad said, we need to connect this community together, because yo-yoers can go hang out and show each other tricks and learn stuff together, right? Instead of having 5 yo-yoers in this city and 5 yo-yoers over there, like the Filipino yo-yo demonstrators had done. So my dad said, we need a community. So he started this newsletter, Yo-Yo Times, and then to advertise it, he talked to different yo-yo manufacturers, and he got a little card put in with every yo-yo that got sold in a little box, and it said, hey, subscribe to Yo-Yo Times newsletter, $12 a year. Just send this in with your name and your address, and $12, right? And he wanted to keep it affordable for kids, because he could have charged a lot more, but and gotten just adults, but he really wanted kids, you know, so he never changed the price. It was always $12 a year. And he did that newsletter for like 20 some years. And that, oh, and then so my dad started keeping track of people's stage names so that everybody wasn't that yo-yo guy or the yo-yo man. So Tommy Smothers is the yo-yo man. My dad became Professor Yo-Yo. I was Yodi because I'm Jodi, so I was Yodi. And then Jennifer Baybrook became the Princess of Yo, and Linda Sangpil was the First Lady of Yo. Like everybody had their names, and my dad kept a list of all the names, and people could register their names. And then he also started keeping track of clubs. So like we have a Thursday night club at the library in this town, you know, and we have like, so yo-yo clubs and then contests. And he started putting all of these in the newsletter. And then people started traveling to contests. And there was one annual contest every year in Chico, California. Every single year, my dad went to this competition. Now he was in Virginia, so he flew cross country to go to this Chico competition every year. And one year, Dad invited a whole bunch of other players. Hey, you know, you're in New York. Well, there's this contest in Chico. Why don't you go? Hey, you're in Texas. Oh, why don't you go to this yo-yo contest? It's really cool. It's in a toy store and the people are great and they have good food. Let's go, you know. And he talked into all these different people from around the country to go to that contest one year, and they all showed up. So there they are in Chico, California. And usually they have the contest. It's like my dad's there. And then the owner of the toy store is there. And then usually it was probably 20 to 50 kids, maybe from around California, maybe Oregon, because it's Northern California, and they'd be at this contest. But this year there were all these people from around the country. That was a new thing. And so Bob Malowney, he's the one who owns the toy store, he said, maybe we should make this the national yo-yo competition. And from that point forward, it was the nationals. There is now, you know, a real national yo-yo competition, and it feeds up. And like, once you get there, you qualify, you get to go to Worlds and compete at Worlds, you know, which is, last I knew was in Orlando. I don't know if it bounces around or what, but yeah, so pretty cool. My dad did that, you know. Yeah, and you're right. This little kid's like, oh, you're a beginner. I'm like, you don't know any of this history. You wouldn't be here if it wasn't for my dad. You know, I'm not a beginner. I'm not as good as my dad was. I didn't do as much as my dad did, but you don't know anything, little kid. And yet he was right. According to skill level, I'm a beginner. That's fine. Really funny. So yeah, my dad, Professor Yo-Yo.
Those stories, for me, they really touch my heart because they're personal, but they're also public, because your dad and you are, you know, very private together, but you're also very public, that you've created this organization and you've fostered it and nurtured it. And now it's, you know, there's the world's yo-yo competition. It's like, wow.
Yeah, I mean, my dad and I didn't create the national yo-yo competition, and he and I didn't really, I mean, I put on 1 or 2 contests myself, local, but I wouldn't say that he and I created this organization. I think Bob Malowney is probably the one who started it. He's the one who owns the toy store in Chico. Like, he kept that competition going year after year after year after year. So I don't want to like have other yo-yoers watching this and going, wait, she didn't do that. You know, I want to be correct.
Okay, so more accurately, you were instrumental in furthering the yo-yo from just being a backyard toy.
Yes,
where
yes.
it stands today.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. And there's a community now. There was no community before. And now it's like this massive community. It's amazing. It's really amazing. And that's what my dad was acknowledged for in the National Yo-Yo Hall of Fame, is the fact that he helped. I mean, he basically created the community from nothing. So
beautiful journey that you shared with him. Yeah. Do you have a favorite quote? Do you have a inspirational quote that you live by?
My dad used to always say, shoot for the moon. Yeah, shoot for the moon, because even if you miss, you'll wind up among the stars. I always love that.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful.
That's one I think about a lot, actually.
Yeah, and I would imagine every time you look celestial up to the stars that your memories of your dad are there with you.
That's true, because he liked the sky too. Oh, he showed me Halley's Comet when it came through town, and I remember that. He's like, look, this is a big deal, Halley's Comet. He said, I don't know if I'll ever see this again, and he never did. But there's a whole story in the next book I'm releasing about my dad wrote a book about goal setting, and he didn't actually finish it. And I'm actually finishing writing what he wrote, and then I'm going to finish the book. And there's a whole chapter in there about Halley's Comet. And yeah, I think about my dad when I look at the sky. Absolutely. Yeah.
That's very special.
I'm really grateful to meet you. Thank you very much for doing this.
Well, thank you so much for your time, and thank you for
you too.
For making time for the conversation.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Need to know more? Links to everything that Jodi and I discussed are in the description below. And make sure you subscribe so you won't miss our next inspiring and engaging conversation.